Welcome to Escaping Dystopia. My name is Roy. I'll be your host. So, today, what's today? Today is September 12th, 2018. Tonight's show, the Schtick gets old. You see, people are starting to see through the clown act. Right? Right? First, we'll get the news. Then we'll do the stuff. Alright. The news. First. Just to scare you a little bit. The deficit. The annual deficit. It's nearly $900 billion. And that right there, right? That is for 1 year. That's the single. They did a thing 200 years. First 200 years, that's less than how much debt we racked up last year. Right? Ha ha! Ha ha! Scary. The op-ed. Nobody knows who did it. Nobody knows who wrote it. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. The president, he asked the attorney general to look into it, but nobody knows who did it. A drop in the polls. The president's looking real bad. Real bad. Dems up by like 13. 13! Who cares? 13 points. Dems way up in the polls. People realized, oh my God, his campaign manager, he's in jail. Way down in the polls. You want evil? You want evil? How about 12,800 kids? Custody. Federal custody. A new record. A new record. Over 500 kids taken from their parents, not seeing them. They're not returned. They haven't put them back. Not gonna happen. They're horrible. People are burning their shoes because they don't like a guy who does. He said, I don't like the police beating up black guys. And so he took a knee out of respect. And now they're burning their shoes. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. A lot of shoe burning this week. There's a big hurricane. A big hurricane headed right for the coast. Gonna smash it all, guys. Gonna smash. Big hurricane coming. We'll see. He's gonna dominate the news. Big hurricane coming. It's gonna eat ya. Kavanaugh is like my teeth are like you're like women's rights. I eat them. Minority rights. Eat them all. Kavanaugh hearing almost over. We'll talk a little bit about how they might stop it later. Ha! Good luck. The Inequity update. You see, more people not making more money than their parents. It's just the way it is. It's how it goes. And Reddit finally did it. They closed the QAnon subreddit, which means crazy idiots. I have to go someplace else. And with that, take off the mask. I like the mask. Take it off. I like it. Take it off. All right. Well, hello. That might be a little bright without that. Hey, there we go. Now we're back to this planet. Sorry, I don't know. The voices, they come. I find a face, I go with it. You gotta give a great. I don't know. So anyway, good to see you again. Welcome back. There we go. That was a pretty crazy clown. I like that clown face. So, some quick background stuff. And just general housekeeping. We do have now I did a little bit of upgrade on the technology here in the house, and we now have our website, escapingdystopia.com, is updated to the latest episode, previous latest episode. Our YouTube channel, right? It's called Escaping Dystopia. I know. It's also been updated. It turns out I thought I had lost 5 episodes due to Facebook configurations and me, I don't know, not doing things right. I don't know. But it turns out I only lost 2, which is actually pretty good. That's like thinking you lost $100 and then you only lost 40. $40, man. That's all right. It's better than 100, right? A little bit of attitude adjustment. See, that's how, when dealing with inconsolable loss, it's not inconsolable loss. Sorry, that's. But anyway, so speaking of loss, the deficit. They had a report out today, $890 billion for this last year. The big problem with this, and this is why I keep talking about this, not because I'm some huge deficit hawk. Again, there's times when you should be running a good deficit, like when cash is cheap, right? When interest rates are low, like they used to be, and when you need to stimulate the economy to help, get things along as the business cycle wanes. Where we're at now, and this is what I've hammered on this a few times, our deficit is soaring while unemployment is going down, and we have a good, healthy economy. And if you have a good, healthy economy and unemployment is low and your deficit's still going up, what the hell's going to happen when things go bad? It's just... So, we'll see. Somebody was talking about this the other day, and they're like saying, if you're into baseball analogies, we're in the 7th inning now of this business cycle. They extended it with the tax cuts, and that was kind of the idea, but you can't do that forever. And I don't think he can extend it for 4 years. I think the idea ultimately is going to be to try and pull off the trade war stuff. We'll talk about a little bit of that more later. But we're really ripe for something else to happen. So they had this announcement of like our deficit's almost $1 trillion, and then the GOP is like, well, the tax cuts that we passed earlier in the year really aren't, working for the electorate, and we need more tax cuts. So they started doing their next round of tax cuts. This is their voodoo that they're going to do, right? So if you remember from the first round, they had to keep the total amount right around like $1.5 trillion to get it under Senate rules so they could do it with a bare majority, right? So they would have a filibuster proof so they could do it through reconciliation. Now, they want to add another $600 billion to that over the 10-year period. Now, what they're doing now is taking those individual tax rate cuts, which weren't as large as the corporate tax cuts in the last version, and then extending them and making them permanent. So the argument here is that now this is the middle class version, right? The corporate tax cuts, look, corporate tax cuts are doing great. Their profits are through the roof. Now we're going to give y'all a tax cut, and then you guys will be through the roof, right? So I don't think this is really working particularly well, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I don't think that this shtick, so to speak, the tax cuts all day long, is actually gonna make it work for them. So they're gonna try and do that. They're basically gonna make the middle class, which is to say the individual tax cuts, permanent, which again are still heavily weighted towards the wealthy. But again, this is the GOP we're talking about. So the op-ed update. So the anonymous op-ed was published in the New York Times last week. Howdy, how you doing? And it's really got the president and other people on edge because now they don't know who to not trust. Not like they already had like this huge, powerful circle of trust in the White House. He just doesn't build loyalty because he doesn't give loyalty because you don't get respect unless you give it to the kind of people. Anyway, not that this matters, but they still don't know who it was. Various theories. There was a good thing the other day claiming that John Huntsman was a good example just because of a number of themes that were touched on it. And then, of course, there's the whole the lodestar conjecture that the word lodestar was used. Although apparently, and this I didn't know this when I saw that the other day, that was something that Henry Kissinger actually used at McCain's funeral as a word, so that kind of throws out the notion that it's a particularly rare word in the context of this whole thing coming from. So
we got that Huntsman. I think my guess is probably just somebody on the National Security Council who's not particularly well known. There's a lot of other civilians. I mean, I think it's a couple thousand people ultimately who make a White House run. So we'll see if they ever find out who it was. The president actually asked the Attorney General to look into this in a pretty stark thing. The press secretary called on people to call the New York Times to tell them to release the name. We'll see. They don't really have much of a reason to do that. And certainly they would lose credibility, I think, if the identity came from the Times. So we'll see how far they push it on this. Usually, he's got so many other problems, I don't think they're going to try and... It's not like this is the one scandal that they're facing, because essentially what that op-ed said is this guy's an idiot who has no idea how to do this stuff, and you guys were all right about all that stuff. So, the drop in the poll, I was kind of talking about this a little bit. The president had this happen this last week, right? Where it finally kind of hit again, although it's not his lowest point, right? There's the way that people consume politics in this country is very, very different. Yeah, I don't totally discount the Pence theory for the op-ed. I know he's got, since day 2, right, he's had his knife out ready for the back of the president, and I definitely think that he's made, how many devil's bargains has he made? I mean, you look back again on him moralizing about Clinton, and now you look what he's lionizing. There's quite a bit of a difference there. And it turns out that the letters behind your name were wildly more important to Mike Pence than what you actually do with your time here on Earth. But, so the drop in the polls has happened. I think the big part of this, especially for more casual observers, because again, there's a lot of the back and forth, and a lot of people watch either, or even that are aware, like a lot of the Facebook discussion and all that, they don't participate, but they're kind of aware of it, and there's the people who are always accusing of this, that, and the other. When you have it with what we had, last week with both the campaign manager of the president and his personal attorney, one being found guilty in a court of law and the other pleading guilty, that just changes the equation a lot. So you have a big drop in support just because of those two things. The issue with this, and this is something that I've talked about before, and people are always like, well, how does he still get back up to 40%? And like, why do people... Because for so many people in this country, again, people who aren't really involved in politics, who don't really care about it, because we are a rich, fat, happy society, and right now, is particularly because we have a strong economy, right? All these things that he's doing, all these ethics problems and idiocy and just he's an embarrassment, while they're bad, they don't really hurt people's lives. So they don't really change their opinion about something. Now, I do think we're going to see a big wave this election, one that I think will be fairly historic. My caveat on election gains is because of the dishonesty, right? Because, I mean, if you look, and there's been a few graphs going around by how many polling stations have been closed in the South. Not that the South is going to be a huge, place where these gains happen, but every percentage point counts when we have a country that's kind of divided like it is. So, you'd like to think that this 13-point, generic advantage that the Dems are seeing at the beginning, really, of campaign season will hold up. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, like I said, this is actually this is the time when the casuals kind of start. I keep saying that. It's going to be kind of a thing I'll probably keep saying because I kind of like it. But the political casuals kind of start paying attention, right? And when they start with, okay, these people all been found guilty, now what? Right? And there's going to be more now what from Mueller between now and the election. The president trying to play the refs in this sense and trying to claim the victim that Mueller's only doing this to hurt them is I don't think really going to be good cover for felonies. And there's lots of felonies coming. So that's been happening. The other thing, this just came out today, the New York Times published that they found out that there's almost 13,000 children in federal custody currently, the immigrant. Then they've tried to. There's currently also working to renegotiate what they call the Flores Agreement, which is, and I don't know the technicalities of this, but essentially what it says is you just can't keep kids under 18 beyond this certain time period. You need to let them go or give them to somebody. And they're trying to change that. And that's what they want to do now, is do indefinite detention and basically hold people until their case is done, which they're trying to now rush them through in these mass cases and just turn this all into, well, we're going to deny any kind of request for asylum and we're going to do any of this and you're just out of here. But even that is not exactly easy if you want to follow any kind of rule of law. It sounds like also there's another report today that they're like denying green card applications and stuff like that for really minor like typos and errors, any kind of thing that they can find now. And that's what happens when you have this tilt, right, to the bureaucracy, shall we say. And the longer that it goes on, especially when you have a tilt like we have that is so intentionally biased, it gets worse. So 13,000 kids. They had another story as well, that there was $10 million redirected from FEMA for basically like IT and a few other training and some other things that went to pay for this child detention, because it's been extremely expensive to build all these places, and you're going to see more stories about the sexual abuse and deaths as well. They're not at the point now where they're intentionally killing. I mean, to even like, that's like the next step from where we're at now, right? I mean, that's not like, it's not hyperbole to say that that's the next step to save money well, we cost so much to keep them and we can't send them back. Anyway, I don't like talking about that whole thing because it bothers me. It really does. It bothers me even to talk about it. To know that that's what's going on, and to know that continues to be a story that's not, and it can't always dominate. But this one hopefully will click through a little bit. We're gonna have the hurricane this next week, which is these kind of big storms can affect news cycles, which can affect elections. We're far out before it's going to really overshadow anything, but I hope this would be a bigger story this next week, that there's all these kids still being taken and that they're trying to change it now to hold them indefinitely. Now, speaking of injustice, right, so you had the Nike ad with Kaepernick, right, which great ad. It's really well done. The notion of you want to transcend sport into something that's more like life in a place where people don't have meaning, right? And there was actually a thing the other day where people are taking CrossFit as their religion, and sport takes along that kind of stuff. So when you have that kind of associate your brand with that feeling, that's good money. So that's an effective ad campaign. The fact that you have a bunch of old, out of shape rednecks burning their shoes, I don't think that really bothers Nike so much moving forward. I do think, like I said, Cap's going to win his lawsuit. There are only 2 people this last weekend in the NFL who kneeled. They weren't fired, so we'll see how that goes. I think I've mentioned this a little bit before. I'm not a huge fan of the mixing of politics and sport and politics into everything, especially in the time when politics have become such a toxic thing in the country and doing that. So we'll see how long this keeps going and if there is any kind of good endpoint. When we were on such a trajectory with Obama and police brutality and the understanding of it, and we kind of had a more general societal agreement, and then we swung back the other day. Drinking water. Everything else I try and drink either makes me burp, or I should maybe drink scotch, but I would drink too much of it because my mouth, I just don't talk this much normally. So I gotta drink the water. Sorry. Need a microphone too, a good one. But we'll get there. It's all good. Anyway, so I don't know how this whole thing is going to ever be resolved. If it's going to be the settlement that the NFL has with Cap, and then he gets to just do activism all the time. I mean, yeah, Scotch and Cigar. I like that idea, and that can certainly happen. And we might have a Scotch and Cigar night here on the show. I'm a fan of Scotch. I enjoy Scotch. Just to say I will drink it and then have another. Anyway. Next story up, hurricane coming. Big hurricane, slow hurricane, very, very wet. That's a quote. Fucking idiot! The fucking... Sorry. He's not a bright man. And this is what's... It's difficult. Very wet hurricane coming. A lot of water. And that's funny because it's actually not... It's not quite so eloquent or interestingly way to say it, but it is accurate. A lot of water coming in this hurricane, particularly this one. So some of the stuff they're saying, it's been moving really slowly because of a number of other high pressure systems. A lot of this actually does have to do with, climate change, and when we've weakened, because there's not as much difference in temperature between the high latitudes and the low latitudes, the jet streams have weakened, and because there's not as much of that turn, you just don't have as much stuff moving around. And so these storms move a little bit slower, apparently. I mean, this is all my understanding of the models and how these all kind of work together to end up with this, what we're seeing here. So it's end up going to be a pretty heavy, wet hurricane. Very wet. Much like Harvey was last year. But this is hitting in a different part of the country that hasn't been, much like H-Town, very prepared for this kind of stuff and is also run by climate change deniers. So we'll see how it goes. I should have some news on that next week. And maybe we'll do another fundraiser. We'll see. The Kavanaugh hearing. So there's a couple questions now coming out. I think he's going to be, unless one of these kind of, I don't call them long shots, but unless these kind of big things hits, he'll be confirmed. I do think if the Dems win the Senate or even the House, I don't know if they can do those kind of House, and then it becomes clear that he's lied very clearly to Congress, and they can actually press charges. This is one of the things that you can actually do when you control a House of Congress, is investigate and press charges and do stuff like that for people lying to you. If you are in power and someone does that and you do not care, you do nothing, which is kind of what's going on now. So apparently he had a bunch of some weird debts, large debts, that they attributed to either baseball cards or tickets to baseball games or gambling or something like that. And apparently he's on record as having to apologize for getting mad at people for a dice game. So I don't know. We'll see. He also apparently stole some emails back in the early 2000s when he was a lawyer for the Bush administration and trafficked in some stuff that he shouldn't have had. The thing about him that sucks for me, or that I think sucks for the country really, is that he cements this whole... Because he's a partisan operative. He's been a partisan his whole life. He's a partisan lawyer and hardcore. He's like Harriet Myers, except competent, apparently. And so we have this kind of just full-on partisan Supreme Court situation. And it's tough, too, because when you have someone... I don't know. Maybe it's always been like that now for the last 10, 12 years. Because Obama really couldn't mess around with too much. And that's why they just said, no, you don't get your last pick. Wookie. Bunch of bullshit. So I do think he's going to be confirmed unless they find something really hardcore about this stuff that hits. The lying stuff is hard because, again, that takes Congress to actually, investigate someone for contempt of Congress, which takes votes, which... takes Congress, controlling Congress. There's another update on the inequity, economic inequity. This is one of those things about the American dream, about having a better life than your folks. Essentially, we're right at about 50-50 right now. That one generation making more than their parents is a 50-50 thing. which means we're basically completely stagnant in that kind of stuff. Which it's a difficult thing too, because when your whole culture and your whole self-identity, right, as a country is built on this notion, and especially now, because, you know, the U.S. of last century was one with opportunity that welcomed immigrants, and now we're looking at this kind of, now white supremacy is going to be our thing, and yeah, more tax cuts. I don't know, no health care, more tax cuts. It's disheartening, but I don't think we need to give up or worry too much about it. Although the Supreme Court thing is going to suck. It really is. And I do think that there's going to need to be a push. I'd love to see the Dems get some real backbone on that legal side and be like, well, you know, if it turns out that Trump gets impeached, they need to go back and look at these appointments. Because that's one of the things, actually, oh my God. So Mitch McConnell is going to go ahead and just keep the Senate in session for all of October so we can, you know, work through our backlog of federal judges, because Obama just didn't work to get them confirmed, so we gotta fill them. So I guess you guys can't go campaign in October either, huh? My Mitch McConnell... I'd like to slap Mitch McConnell, like, upside the head, maybe backside, because he's a little guy. But the way that he approaches this is just so nakedly partisan and so nakedly power-hungry. And unfortunately, to the degree that it's been effective, it's been effective. And then finally tonight, I'm going to get some good news. So Reddit, if you're not familiar with it, all the kiddos are. Although I think we're getting close to another generational change where, like, yeah, that's boring and old. But Reddit closed they have, so anybody can go on to, if you're not familiar with how the website works, it's pretty neat. It's very slick and updated now, but anybody can go and create their own subreddit, which is, you actually get the same URL, like Reddit/subreddit/ whatever name you give it, and so people can name whatever, build communities. It's all about building whatever kind of community you want. And there's some really, really, really crazy ass. Just go check out. If you're not familiar with what a space stick is, you can go find out. So that's your internet challenge for the night. Reddit, space sticks. Don't ask me to explain any of that stuff. If that still exists, I don't even know. So, but that was back when I did the Reddit for a little bit. But anyway, anybody can create their own community. So they had one of the communities that was dedicated to this whole stupid ass QAnon, ridiculous, Trump's in charge and he's about to indict everybody who's ever said anything bad on child porn stuff. And JFK's running it from the not great. And it gets dumber from there. But anyway, they had a subreddit there, and this is one of the things I was talking about before, that it's a very virulent, to use that kind of germ theory concept for mimetic idea transfer, right? So these are where a lot of these ideas gestate, mutate, and get kind of nasty and then go out into the world. And so they shut it down. We'll see how that works, but it's at least a good step, right? That's what, like, the banning of Alex Jones, giving a platform to these things, and that's what, I mean, these kind of things, and what I'm doing here, right, is it's fairly powerful kind of technology, right? For me to go in my basement, whip up my phone, just hit a couple buttons, and then I'm doing this, and this actually records pretty nice quality, right? And then I can do whatever with it. I mean, this kind of thing 20 years ago this was well beyond. I mean, I guess you can do your public access, right? Which is basically where we're at, but it's not public access. It's kind of this corporate access. But the corporate access is a much higher level, right, than what you're looking at with public access. Because I can't broadcast live on public TV whenever I want to. But on these private corporate networks, I can. And I can have quality international broadcast to any audience size at no cost to me, right? If I follow the rules. And that's one of the things, and there's an idea in business is, don't build your business on somebody else's garden, right? And that's kind of the danger, the downside, because you got to realize where you're at. Follow the fucking rules. That's going to get a little bit more interesting on college campuses in one aspect, and maybe we'll talk about that next week. But anyway, I think we're about done. I appreciate everybody for dropping by. Anybody who made it through that fucking clown. That clown was awesome. Sorry, I'm from Halloween. Sorry, I'm a scary guy. What can I say? But anyway, thanks for anybody who came by later, and hope you guys have a great week. And we're moving towards an election, like I said, so I'll probably keep doing these. And I got the websites updated, and I got a laptop to do shit now. I'm gonna be like, so I've got and I can do like the new like Windows lets you like draw on videos and do. So I can do like things where, because I talk with my hands a lot and think very geometrically. And so I can actually show you guys a little bit better. So I'm learning how to do that. So we'll have some cool, neato technology super stuff well beyond scary clown face coming up on some of the edited videos, and I'll share and whatnot if anybody gives a shit. Anyway, peace out, and thanks for watching, and y'all have a great week. And we're 1 week closer to the end of Trump, so one way or the other, right? Have a good one. Good night.